But you seem to where you really, I see you taking off with the channel was like the off-road stuff. Like you seem to have a true passion for that. And between you and Andre, you guys seem to, that's where you guys seem to gravitate towards just a little bit. Do vehicles, so with all the cool new off-road vehicles, obviously, you know, you guys were talking about the Wrangler, the EV Wrangler, which I'm a little iffy on that. I think it's a gimmick, honestly.
Okay.
That's what I think eventually, yes, it will be something. But right now, for what you guys saw that you did off-road, like it needed gas to kind of go. But all the plethora of off-road vehicles right now, we're kind of starting to live in a golden age again, I think, of off-road vehicles. And with Ford bringing the Bronco out, you know, Wrangler had it to themselves for a long time. And somebody in your chat tonight commented and said, well, what about 4Runner? Well, guys, 4Runner is so, like, it's so old, it's not even funny. And I think 4Runner, if it wasn't for Tacoma, would have been forgotten about a long time ago. I just think it's kind of brought the 4Runner guy around, and it's the only game, or was sort of the only game, with Nissan got away with the Xterra and stuff like that. But like true off-roaders, these guys are really investing in these type of vehicles, and they're not great for miles per gallon, like in a company-wide miles per gallon. They are not great, but I'm happy to see like Land Rover and all these guys do something.
Yeah, it's honestly, I was just talking to my dad about this. I think that the stupidest thing Nissan could have done was killed that Xterra when they did. I mean, they kept the Frontier going, which was great, but the Xterra was such a capable vehicle. And if they had held on like another year and a half, and they got into this off-road wave, yeah, they would have been so successful with it.
Well,
especially
Xterra had the problem of crash testing. That was that yes. Stadium roof just did it.
Not great. Yeah. But I mean, I still think, and I will own one of these one day, and they will get expensive. I'm going to go on the record and say that now is a final year Pro 4X in that bright blue with those lights on the top with the covers that you have to pull off. Oh, that thing is going to be. I mean, look at FJ Cruisers. FJ Cruisers now.
Yes.
2014's a Trails team is going for in low mileage $50,000-$60,000.
Yeah, more than it was new. Well, and I know when Nick Xterra was dying, I want to say I put in one of y'all's chats, but when Xterra's dying, like Boulder Nissan out there where you're at, they were buying up any Pro 4X they could find, because where you guys live, you actually literally need four-wheel drive vehicles. And I think the market sort of forgets that, or these manufacturers sort of forget that, because they chase trends. And, you know, they thought, oh, like with Nissan, they thought, oh, okay, the Rogue, we'll do an all-wheel drive Rogue, and that's going to make everybody happy. And it's like, no, people need, like Broncos. They need true off-road vehicles, right?
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, I get the comments a lot like, well, you've owned so many Wranglers, so you have to be a Wrangler fanboy. And the fact of the matter is, I would have owned so many Broncos, too, if it hadn't been gone for 26 years.
Yeah.
You know, like, when you look at these OEMs, they look for, like, white space in the market within white space within the market. BMW now has 14 different versions of a crossover coupe of the same vehicle, but for some reason, Wrangler didn't have a real competitor in the States for 26 years?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
How does that happen? You know what I mean? That's
crazy. And nobody in the early 90s, everybody was trying to take on Wrangler. You know, Isuzu had the Amigos. Everybody had something to take them on, and then for whatever reason, it wasn't profitable anymore, or they just didn't want to.
I think it was the wrong time. I mean, like, you know, you look at what was popular in the 90s, and it was Explorers and Expeditions, and it was giant SUVs. I mean, that was one of the reasons that the Bronco went away in 95, 96 is because Explorer was selling so well. And they're like, well, people are buying these four-door SUVs that maybe don't have quite the same presence, but are better for the family, better in the wallet. And that was great in 1996. But it isn't so great in 2015 or 2016, right, when it really started to explode. So,
well, and cars were popular then. You know,
very true.
And trucks were very utilitarian. They were just basic. Like I remember seeing the 454 SS Chevy, thinking, oh my God, this thing, you know, what the horsepower is horrible. Today's standards, it's nothing. But
it's nothing.
But then I remember looking inside of it, going, oh, it doesn't. The inside doesn't match the outside. But now these manufacturers are so smart, and I give Ford a lot of credit. I think they have too many models of Bronco, but they've tried to make each model unique to itself. The cloth seats on the base I'm not a fan of that, because it looks just like what you'd see in a basic F-150. But I get it. Cars are like, people don't understand. I say this a lot. to develop one car is over $1 billion now. People think, oh, they just stamp out new things, and it's
You're
$1
right.
billion. That's why Nissan took a lot of crap with the Pathfinder. Oh, we're making a unibody, and you're like, yeah, but that name alone's worth $1 billion in advertising. So they got to get money back. And for Ford to, they did the Explorer. What was the Explorer truck? The little unibody thing they did.
Oh, the Sport Track.
Yeah, the Sport Track. They've
Yeah.
taken a little bit of chances, but they've not taken a chance like the Bronco in a long time.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, Dave, that you bring up, because it is ridiculously expensive building a new platform. New engines are just so expensive. It's much more affordable, though, to take an existing architecture and then plop a different top on it.
Mm-hmm.
Toyota did it with the FJ Cruiser back in 2007, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was basically a 4Runner with a different top. And I really do think that they probably should have seen the popularity in off-roaders coming a little bit further down the road and started adapting mid-sized pickup trucks into more extreme, off-road ready vehicles. It's interesting.
Right.
And the other interesting thing too is even Jeep was wrong about it when they launched the Wrangler JK in 2007 in the unlimited trim. They thought that the four-door might sell 15%.
Yeah.
Right. The off-road community didn't want to touch it.
Yeah.
You saw aftermarket companies saying, no way, we are not building lift kits for that. We are not building soft top for that. And then, a year later, it's what, 70-80% of their market share. It's pretty crazy.
Well, where do you stand on that? When you compare, you guys obviously right now you have a four-door Bronco and a four-door Wrangler there. But I know you just bought the two-door Willys package, and I was kind of poking the bear on your chat a little bit about that, because I do think for Jeep, I think the Willys package is one of the better bargains for that. Jeeps are expensive no matter what, so you do get a little bit of options with it. Now you went super base with yours, but I think that between those two brands, like there's opportunities for the four-door, but I don't see opportunities necessarily for the two-door. I don't know how the two-doors stay around.
Well, that's an amazing point, Dave. And I honestly don't know either, to be totally frank with you. I got the inside story on how the four-door started, which was interesting. It was like during the Daimler era,
Mm-hmm.
and Mercedes saw the potential in the G-Wagon, and they said, let's try to translate that a little bit to the Wrangler with the four-door, and then that just blew up. I don't know what the breakdown is now, but I know several years ago with the JK, it was like 75-80% four-door to two-door. And maybe it's a heritage thing.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a cafe thing. Fuel economy is a little bit better typically on the two-door configuration.
Right.
But yeah, so for me, I am all about compactness and small vehicles with short dimensions.
Well, you have a Mini, so clearly, yes.
That's another story. I don't know if we want to talk about that. I'm just going to get all my credibility shots down there. But yeah, so all about tiny dimensions. So that made sense for me. And I don't have a family.
Yeah.
I don't carry stuff. And I'll tell you, flat out of the bat, if you want to carry more than a toaster oven, the two-door Wrangler is not for you, right? The trunk is basically an aesthetic piece of the vehicle.
Well, try having a YJ. Because the YJ was even smaller. Okay, so I went to the grocery store one time, not even thinking about, I'm used to bigger SUVs, and I was like, oh crap, because I had my son with me and my wife with me, and I was like, where do I put stuff now?
I think the back seat on a YJ, if I remember right, is against the tailgate.
Almost.
The only reason I had a trunk on my YJ is so that when I locked myself out, I could just go through the back. That was the only use for it. Now, I will say Ford has done a really good job with the two-door Bronco and actually the back seat room, and specifically behind the rear seat room. It's pretty usable, but I'm still going to say just get the four-door model.
Yeah.
Unless you're like me and you don't have friends or hobbies or activities, and all you want to do is go over rocks, get the four-door.
Well, so my initial order was for the two-door. I was going to do a two-door Badlands. And because my son's out of the house now, I have a young daughter, but, I'm not getting in the back of the thing. So it's like, hey, that's kind of your problem. Dad wanted a cool truck. Now you've got to deal with it. But a buddy of mine was like, hey, man, look. There's resale value involved. And obviously, I'm not buying this thing to flip, but at some point, I will move on to something else. So, yes, there is the point of like you were saying, there's a small market for two doors. versus the 4 doors. And what is it, like over 80% now for Jeep Wrangler versus 2 doors, something like that, right?
Yeah, I don't know what the number is, but that sounds pretty spot on. Yeah. For a while there, you'll get a kick out of this, Dave. For a while there, Jeep's biggest competition in the market was a power boat. They ran through all this market studies, and they after talking to their customers, they realized that people weren't cross-shopping against 4Runners. They weren't cross-shopping against like fun cars like Miatas, which they tried. People were cross-shopping a Wrangler with a speedboat. That was their number one competitor. I kid you not.